Buddhism is an ancient tradition with answers to life's biggest questions today. Why do we suffer? How do we relate to other beings? And how do we make the world a happier and more peaceful place for everyone? Our mission at BDK America is to help people understand Buddhism better. Are you looking to start learning about Buddhism or dig deeper? BDK America offers free books and videos for peoples of all ages and levels. Our most popular book, The Teaching of Buddha, is available to read in English and 46 other languages in physical, PDF, and audiobook formats. Visit our website for our latest publications and order your own free copy today.
Previously, we looked at the state of Buddhism in America. Well, over the course of the next 4 programs, we'll be going back to the very origins of Buddhism, focusing on the life of the Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. The Buddha was a human being, not a god. He lived in the northeastern area of the Indian subcontinent some 2,500 years ago. The records tell us that the Buddha was born a prince of a kingdom located on the present-day borders of India and Nepal. His given name was Siddhartha, meaning he whose purpose is accomplished, and his family name was Gautama. In Sanskrit, the language of ancient India, the term Buddha meant one who has awakened. So Buddha is actually a title used to refer to anyone who attains ultimate awakening, which is the goal of all Buddhists, past and present. In other words, in Buddhism, there are as many Buddhas as there are awakened people. Yet normally, when we say the Buddha, we are referring to the Indian prince who became the founder of Buddhism. To avoid any confusion, he is often referred to as Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakya in Shakyamuni refers to the name of his clan, and Muni means the sage, thus the sage of the Shakya clan. According to Buddhist legend, one night the prince's mother, Queen Maya, had a strange dream in which she dreamt that a white elephant entered her womb through the right side of her chest, after which she conceived. 9 months later, when Queen Maya was returning to her parents' home to have the baby, she took a rest in the Lumbini garden, finding herself captivated by the beautiful flowers of the Ashoka trees. As she reached up for a branch, it is said that the tree bent itself down to meet her hand, and she gave birth standing up. And as soon as the prince was born, he is said to have taken 7 steps and proclaimed, "In the heavens above and heavens below, I alone am the honored one." But the joy of birth was short-lived, as Queen Maya suddenly died. The prince was then brought up by his stepmother, Maha Prajapati. By many accounts, the young prince was a sensitive child. Once he sat under a tree watching a farmer plowing the ground. Soon the birds began to sweep down to prey on the earthworms. This shocked the young prince, and he was saddened by the fact that creatures have to prey on others. Given the sensitive nature of the young prince, his father, King Shuddhodana, was probably not surprised when a hermit prophesied that his son would be either a great king or an eminent spiritual leader. The king was fearful that his son might abandon the kingdom in favor of seeking the spiritual path. So he did everything in his power to shield him from experiencing pain and suffering. In this way, the prince was surrounded only by young, healthy, and beautiful people, and sheltered by the life of pleasure within the pristine confines of the palace. However, this all came to an end when he wandered outside the palace gates 4 separate times. On his first journey, accompanied by his driver, Prince Siddhartha rode out from the east gate in a chariot. He then came upon an old person, bent over and barely able to walk, even with a cane. Having never seen anyone like him before, the prince was puzzled and asked the driver, who the old person could be. Well, the prince was told that everyone would be like him if one lived long enough. Shocked, the prince asked, "I too?" And the reply was, "Yes, you too, sir." On another day, the prince left from the south gate. Shortly, the prince came upon a very sick person lying on the side of the road in great pain and agony. Shocked again, the prince asked, "I too?" And the reply was, "Yes, you too, sir." The prince left yet a third time from the west gate. He came upon a deceased person being carried by his family to the funeral pyre. Shocked once again, the prince asked, "I too?" And the reply was again, "Yes, you too, sir." On another day, the prince left from the north gate, where he came upon a wandering monk. This time, the monk's serene and composed features captivated the prince's attention to such an extent that he felt compelled to be like him and seek the spiritual life. Soon thereafter, he made a difficult decision to leave behind his family, along with a life of luxury and pleasure, in search of an answer to the question of suffering and how to overcome it. His motivation to do so is expressed in today's saying, "The luxuries of the palace, this healthy body, this rejoicing youth, what do they mean to me?" he thought. "Someday we may all be sick, we shall become aged. From death there is no escape. Pride of youth, pride of health, pride of existence. All thoughtful people should cast such pride aside." Then the prince headed off for the forest. He was 29 years of age. In today's modern world, many of you may wonder why and how one follows a spiritual calling. To take us on her own personal journey, our guest today is Reverend Jiho Sargent, who is a Zen priest. Reverend Sargent, thank you for coming today to be part of our program.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. I have a number of questions to ask you, and the first one is, how long have you been a priest?
Well, I was a priest trainee for 10 years and fulfilled the qualifications of being a priest with a temple. And I've been thus fully ordained for 15 years.
What made you go so far as to become a priest? You didn't have to be a priest.
Well, no. Just by circumstances, I found myself at one time as the leader of a Zazen group for Westerners. And it finally occurred to me that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And that I was the leader simply because the meetings were in my house.
I see. Yeah.
And it wasn't really much help in dealing with people. So I wanted to become an apprentice priest and have the training that priests undergo to help me.
Let me ask you about your robe. You know, Buddhist priests and monks and nuns dress differently. And
our robes, interestingly, I think, are a commentary on the history of Buddhism and its passage from India to Japan and then to the West, because the outermost robe that we wear is an Indian Buddhist robe. This is a miniature version of it, but the full-size one ties over the shoulder. And yours is an even more miniature version than mine.
Although this one, in essence, if I open mine up, it's very similar inside. It looks a little different.
Different, but yes.
So Indian outside.
Indian outside, and then Chinese on the second layer. And then under that, where you can't really see it, a Japanese kimono-style garment.
I see.
And those of us who come from the West, I think, mostly wear a layer of Western underclothes under that.
That's great.
But of course, once we get under the skin, we're all the same.
Oh, very good. Tell me, Buddhist monks and priests often shave their head, monks especially, definitely. Why do they shave their head?
Well, it's basically a symbol of cutting off attachments to worldly things. And it's also a way of identifying a Buddhist priest. In earlier times, until 1870, the Japanese government required that almost all Buddhist priests have their heads shaved.
I see.
And Jodo Shinshu was an
My
exception.
denomination. Okay.
Yes, even at that time.
I see, yeah.
But most of the other denominations required it so that you could identify them.
I see. Interesting. Let me ask you about the Buddha. What do you find attractive about the Buddha?
Well, the thing that I find most attractive, and that attracted me in the first place, is that the Buddha didn't ask us to believe in him or anyone else, or his teachings for that matter. He simply asked us to act in a way that is friendly to other beings, whether human or not, and that leads to a peaceful universe. That, I think, is a good thing to have.
So it's not so much what you believe, but how you act
Yes.
in the world. Yes.